The 11th of November 1918 is etched in history as the day that people around the world finally heard the news they'd been so desperate to hear, that the Armistice had been signed, formally ending the Great War. The people of Geelong and those living in communities across the Barwon Region were no different. The Geelong post office bell rang out at 8:30 p.m, followed by bells across the city to signal the news that the Armistice had been signed in a train carriage in France. The streets soon filled with thousands of revellers who came from far and wide, on foot and even on horseback, from as far afield as Warn Ponds, to be part of the celebrations to mark the end of the war to end all wars. Musicians played patriotic songs, the community sang, and the masses carried patriotic flags as they paraded through the city streets. The joy that the news of the Armistice brought the community was palpable. The official peace celebrations came over 6 months later with the signing of the Treaty of Versailles. Geelong and district communities celebrated again with great fanfare. Following a parade through the streets of central Geelong, an estimated crowd of 18,000 filled Gerringap Street, from the post office corner on Ryrie Street all the way down to Mallop Street. In the afternoon, the people of Geelong again came together, this time at Corio Oval in the Eastern Gardens, to enjoy a special school children's display. But as the crowds gathered, they also remembered those who served and the loved ones who would never return. Communities across the region established their own memorials, honouring those who had served and those who had made the ultimate sacrifice. Each memorial was unveiled with solemn crowds paying their respects to the fallen. In Warn Ponds, trees were planted to form an avenue of honour to commemorate 31 soldiers who'd enlisted from the district. The Meredith and District Honour Roll was organised by the local Vigilance Committee, honouring 34 local servicemen. The Gradation Road was created as a memorial dedicated to soldiers killed in World War I. It was a passion project of Geelong's Mayor, Councillor Howard Hitchcock. Behind closed doors, families waited anxiously for their loved ones to return home, a journey that could take several months after the war had ended. Joyful reunions featured singing, as well as many glasses raised to the future. Country towns across the Geelong and Barwon region hosted welcome home functions in their local halls. Specially designed medals were created and presented to the returning servicemen and women. Civic leaders created the Geelong and District Returned Soldiers Reception Committee. They greeted the returning soldiers, sailors and nurses at the Geelong railway station and organised cars to take them home. But while some families celebrated, others grieved and had to adjust to life without their loved ones. The war had left mothers without their sons, wives without their husbands, and children without their fathers. The Australian Imperial Force sent tokens of remembrance to the next of kin of servicemen killed, photos of their final resting place, a memorial plaque and scroll, and war medals. The loss of Private Edwin Werrick Thompson, a railway employee from Drysdale, devastated his parents Edwin and Mary Ann. They wrote several letters thanking the AIF for all they received in honour of their son. For the men and women who returned from the war, their local communities were eager to support their adjustment to peacetime life. Returned servicemen worked on a local scheme to improve Western Beach, organised by the Geelong West Town Council and funded by the Repatriation Department. Geelong's Gordon Technical College also enrolled returned servicemen to help them find work, providing training in skills such as woodworking and wool sorting. Just when the region had begun to recover from the war, a new threat appeared: the Spanish flu, a highly contagious and deadly form of influenza. Geelong authorities had inoculations against the Spanish flu ready before the first person fell ill in February 1919. To prevent the spread of disease, gathering places, such as theatres and churches, were temporarily closed. 36 people from the Geelong community lost their lives to the disease by May 1919, after which the spread of infection was contained and then declined. After the returning men and women had been welcomed home, they began the often difficult process of restarting their lives. Many were affected by the war and faced a long adjustment period to get back to home life. Some stayed in hospitals and recuperation homes before they could start their lives again. Private Claude Wall was a typical example. He was injured and lost his right eye, making his adjustment to civilian life even more difficult. In 1923, he was in trouble with the law, caught speeding without headlights. But by 1927, he had settled down and married Harriet McLean. The aftermath of the war left many who served scarred, and this impact flowed onto their families. Geelong and district communities would live with the legacy of World War I for many years to come, continuing to both celebrate and to remember.